Hello everyone. Going to do a little tutorial on a casted urethane part that I reverse engineered for someone. It was made out of natural rubber and I redid it in urethane, so I just wanted to make a video of how I went about that. So I took their old part, looks like this, and drew it up on the computer and then made a mold out of these two halves and printed them on my 3D printer. Has inside parts in it too, and we'll show you how to wax that and get it all put together. These just help align it. So we get these two parts in here, and I have a piece of ready rod, and you can see in the bottom side it has a hex, so it fits that nut. So you don't have to use one wrench on it. And on the top side, take a washer and a nut. Crank that thing down. Just like that. And then we can wax these halves. And we're using honey wax, mold release agent, works great. Put a coat of this on. When you first start, you need to put more than one coat on, but when I'm redoing it, I only put one coat on. So you can see, I mean, it's nice, soft wax, like car wax basically. You don't want to get it loaded on there, but you can get it put on there and then go back and wipe off the excess, and then you let it dry. Just like that. That one's good to go. Set that one aside. We can work on these mold halves. Down in these little, basically looks like an O-ring groove. I will get the wax on there, and after it's sat just a little bit, I'll go back and take a drill bit that's just slightly smaller than that slot and put the end in it and just use it as a scraper to scrape off the excess wax that gets in those little grooves. So set this one aside. Make sure they're clean, because otherwise that will be in your casted part. Get down in all them little corner grooves. Chops. No. Doggy shredding stuff. Just try to wipe the excess out of them. Down the side. And we can go back in on this one. It doesn't have to be a drill bit. A drill bit works good, but you can use like an end of a zip tie or something like that, or a screwdriver, just to scrape the excess out of the center section of it so it doesn't build up. Otherwise the wax will take the place of where the urethane is supposed to be and make it so this part doesn't seal. So just get that excess out of there. If you let it dry, the longer you let it dry, the more pasty it gets, and it's easier to clean it off. That one looks pretty good. Gotta make sure there's that urethane build up in there. Got a little urethane in there. cleaned all the way out. So we'll go back in here and put a little bit of wax on that one so we don't have that same spot stick. Otherwise it will stick. That's going to dry in there. So how I did this here is there's two little grooves that line up with these 4 holes on the bottom here so that it aligns this correctly, which on this part doesn't really matter where it lines up because it's the same on the outside, you know, side to side, but we have to get it clocked correctly because the part is matching kind of here as on the outside as the inside, as you can see that shape. These are just good old bolts, what they had at the store at the time, and I've just been using them. They were just a little bit too long, so I added a nut down there and then a fender washer so that you're not putting too much pressure in one spot on the 3D printed mold part. So this half, you can see how that lines up and clocks that correctly. What I was meaning when we put that in there, that doesn't really have to line up, doesn't matter. When we get these 2 halves on here, on the bottom side, it will clamp that and line that up. So the 2 bolts going through there, they will clock it correctly this way, and then also it gets lined up cylindrical, I think that's the word, to square it up inside in the center of the mold. Throw some washers and some nuts on there. That must have been on the top. That's beautiful, man. And these are usually snug, not crazy, because the mating faces are big on this and flat. And then I use urethane silicone release. There's another brand that fiberglass sells that I'm going to buy next time, but just shoot some in there, and that's all you got to do. You don't need a bunch more. And I just shoot it in the top because it kind of helps the top side break loose when I take it out. So we will set that aside, and then we have our double bucket here. And the reason why I have two buckets in one is because when you put it in the vacuum chamber, it expands a lot, and it will come up almost to the top of this, probably, down a little bit. You can regulate it with how many inches of vacuum you have. But make sure your bucket's clean. Double check it if there's no old urethane in there. And then we'll take our little handy dandy scale here. Nice flat surface. We'll tear it out with a bucket on, then it does it automatically. And I am using fiberglass 3360, and I also use 3340, which is Shore A, and this two-digit number here means how hard it is. 60 Shore part A, part B. Mix these two, and on these two it's different on the 40 than it is on the 60 urethane when you mix them, as far as parts wise. And I always mix these the same amount. It takes 16 ounces to pour this and have a little spare so you don't short it. And this one is 100A and 55B parts. So I wrote how much I need right on the top of it, so I never have to remember it or forget it or whatever. So we will first one, and we need 10.32 ounces. So take your time on this, especially with a full jug. I think I'll probably get a pump system. We'll wipe this off, like this, and then we can set it aside. I use a fresh rag for each one, so you're not hardening urethane on the can. So this one we'll throw away. Got an extra egg here. And then we'll tear our scale. Got 5.67. Now I always take my cell phone and start a timer so that we know we're not getting too close. And we are going to mix this. Fiberglass recommends you use a plastic mixing stick, which they sell, so that you don't introduce any extra moisture into the mix, because it won't cure then. So I'm going to mix this. I found that 2 minutes of mixing, usually you don't have any mist resin, and make sure you move around and get every angle and corner, and make sure you're scraping the bottom as you mix it. So let's have 2 minutes of mixing here. Get this ready to go into the vacuum pot. You want to make sure that you mix it, because otherwise you'll have non-hardened spots in your pour in the middle of your part. I like to do it at an angle also, because it will, what you scoop around the top side will run down and kind of mixes through the stuff that you don't, maybe if you missed a spot on the bottom of the bucket when you're mixing. Alright, we're at our 2 minutes there. Let this drizzle off for just a second. Stick it in there so it drain off, then you can peel off and reuse that thing. We'll get this in here. Set this over here so you can watch the bubbles. Pretty amazing how much this stuff expands. So the reason I have that bucket as tall as I can is you can see how high this goes, and we're only using 16 ounces of mixed material. It grows so much that you have to have a massive container to get the thing to keep the bubbles in. So what I'm doing there is regulating the amount of vacuum over on the side so that it doesn't stick to the top. So I'll set this camera back down here. It'll take a couple minutes for this to, whoop, we got her up there. It'll take a couple minutes for this to suck all the air out of here, and then it will start collapsing down, and then when it starts collapsing down, you know that it's ready to go into the mold. This urethane that's touched the glass here doesn't really matter, you can just peel it off. But make sure you don't have a bunch of mold release on this. There you can see it's shrinking back down. You want to have a bunch of mold release on that glass so it contaminates your mix. So when we shut this off, now that it's collapsed, you see how it sucks down so fast. Pop that off. Bring out our mold. Hold it up kind of high and make a thin stream. They say that helps get any bubbles out. But don't take too long with this Shore 60 because you will be having trouble getting it to pour. If you just stay on one side, the bubbles will work their way out on the other side. Sometimes I angle it a little bit to get the bubbles to come out. And I was going to build a vibrating plate for it, but kind of seem to have been having luck with getting it to pour by vacuuming the bubbles and then air compressing it to get it to get rid of all the micro bubbles. We want to make sure that we're up above high enough in there so that when it shrinks it doesn't go down too far. Stick her in our pressure pot. Absolute sure that you have this put together correctly, because they are and we're going to crank that up to 60. And there it will sit for hours. It has a demold time, I think, of like 2 to 3 hours. But if I do this in the evening, I'll just let it sit at 60 psi overnight. So, thanks for watching the video. This is just how I do it. Also, I wanted to put in there that we are under the 10-minute mark of after we got the mix, the A and the B parts together. So I don't remember what the working time is. I think it's more than that, but it gets really, really stiff if you get beyond that.